All right, let's dive into the most incredible and complex system you own, your nervous system. We're going to break down everything you need to know, covering the core concepts from the Icse syllabus to give you a full tour of your body's amazing command center. So let me ask you something. Have you ever stopped to think about what's running everything? I mean, from the quiet rhythm of your own breathing while you sleep, to remembering a joke, to just blinking your eyes? Yep, it's all the nervous system, that super fast biological internet we're about to explore. And here's our game plan. We'll start big picture, then zoom all the way into the single most important cell, the neuron. After that, we'll build our way back out, look at the central and peripheral systems, see how your body handles stress, and finally, check out the fastest reactions of all, reflexes. Let's get into it. So, first up, why does this system even matter so much? Well, it's about way more than just thinking. It is the absolute master controller for your entire body. And it gives you some pretty incredible powers. Basically, your nervous system is juggling 4 critical jobs at all times. First, it's your connection to the outside world, pulling in information through your senses. Second, it lets you move on purpose. Every single step you take, every word you write, that's a voluntary move directed by this system. Third, it's basically where you live. It lets you remember things, figure stuff out, and reason. And maybe the most amazing part, it runs all the background programs you never even think about, like your heart beating and your lungs breathing. It is the ultimate multitasker, for sure. So, how does this huge, complex system actually pull all this off? Well, it all comes down to one amazing, highly specialized cell. Let's meet the star of our show, the neuron. The neuron is the fundamental building block. It's the structural and functional unit of the whole system. You can think of it like a tiny biological wire that's also its own transmitter. Its entire job is to zap messages, or signals, around your body, and it does this with this brilliant 1-2 punch of electricity and chemistry. Okay, let's take a look at how this thing is built for speed. You see those branchy-looking things? Those are the dendrites. They act like little antennas, catching signals from other neurons. That signal then goes to the cell body, where the nucleus is. From there, it shoots down that long tail, the axon, which is often wrapped in a myelin sheath. That's insulation that makes the signal go even faster. And finally, it hits the axon terminals, where it gets ready to pass the message on. Now, this brings us to something that is absolutely crucial. Information only flows one way through a neuron. It is a one-way street, always. It goes from the dendrites to the cell body, down the axon to the terminals. This strict direction of traffic is what keeps the messages organized and prevents total chaos in the system. It's just an incredibly efficient design. So, how does the message get from one neuron to the next if they don't actually touch? Well, there's this microscopic gap between them called a synapse. When the electrical signal hits the end of the line, the axon terminal, it triggers the release of these little chemical messengers called neurotransmitters. These chemicals float across that tiny gap, and they're picked up by the dendrites of the next neuron, which then starts a whole new electrical signal. It's this beautiful, lightning-fast conversion from electrical to chemical and back to electrical again. Okay, we've met the messenger. Now let's go to headquarters, where all the big decisions are getting made. This is your central nervous system, or CNS, and it's made up of 2 major parts, the brain and the spinal cord. Now, the brain isn't just one big blob. Different parts have different jobs. The cerebrum, that's the big one on top. It's the CEO. It's in charge of your intelligence, memory, and all your conscious thoughts. Then you've got the cerebellum, tucked in the back. Think of it as the coordinator. It's in charge of balance and making sure your movements are smooth. And finally, the medulla oblongata, down at the brainstem. It's the unsung hero, quietly controlling all the vital automatic stuff, like breathing and your heartbeat, that keeps you alive. And we can't forget the spinal cord. It's so much more than just a cable. It's the main information superhighway, carrying messages up to the brain and commands back down. But it's also got a mind of its own in a way. It can act as the command center for our fastest reactions, our reflexes, which we're going to talk about in just a bit. So how does the CNS, the central command, actually talk to the rest of your body? You know, your hands, your organs, your toes. It does it through the peripheral nervous system, or PNS. This is basically all the nerves that branch out from the brain and spinal cord, linking headquarters to every other part of you. This flowchart here shows us the basic layout. The PNS is the whole network that connects central command to everything else. And you can see right away it splits into 2 main branches that do very different things, the somatic system and the autonomic system. So let's break that down. It's actually pretty simple. The somatic system is the part you're consciously in charge of. When you decide to kick a ball or pick up a pen, that's your somatic system listening to you. The autonomic system? That's the stuff that just happens. It runs on autopilot, controlling all your internal organs, your heart, your stomach, your glands, without you having to think about it for a second. Now, let's dive a little deeper into that automatic system because this is where things get really cool. The autonomic system is all about keeping your body in balance, and it does this using two amazing opposing forces. Meet the sympathetic and parasympathetic systems. The sympathetic system is like your body's gas pedal. When you're stressed or face a threat, it slams down, kicking off that famous fight or flight response to get you ready for action. On the flip side, the parasympathetic system is the brake pedal. It's what calms you down, saves energy, and handles all the routine stuff. We call it the rest and digest system. And this image shows that push and pull relationship perfectly. Just look at the heart. The sympathetic system revs it up, making it beat faster to pump more blood. The parasympathetic system slows it back down. The sympathetic system opens up your pupils to let in more light. The parasympathetic system closes them down. They're like two sides of a coin, constantly working together to keep your body stable and balanced in a state called homeostasis. All right, for our final section, let's look at the nervous system's fastest possible pathway, a shortcut that completely bypasses conscious thought for lightning-quick reactions. Let's talk about reflexes. So, what's really the difference between yanking your hand away from a hot stove versus, say, picking up a book? It comes down to two things: speed and consciousness. A voluntary action, like picking up that book, starts with a thought in your cerebrum. But a reflex, that's automatic, involuntary, and incredibly fast, because the command doesn't even come from the thinking part of your brain. It comes straight from the spinal cord or the brainstem to save you precious milliseconds in a dangerous spot. And believe it or not all reflexes are created equal. You have natural or inborn reflexes that you're just born with. You never had to learn them. Things like sneezing or swallowing. But then you also have conditioned reflexes. These are the ones you acquire through practice and experience. Think about typing on a keyboard or tying your shoes. At first you had to think about every move, right? But now it's just an automatic, conditioned reflex. Of course, the most famous example of this is Pavlov's experiment with his dogs. A dog naturally salivates when it sees food. That's an inborn reflex. But Pavlov started ringing a bell every time he fed the dogs. After a while, the dogs' brains made a new connection, and they'd start salivating just at the sound of the bell, even if there was no food. That's a textbook conditioned reflex. And this all happens through a super fast pathway called the reflex arc. It's an incredible neural shortcut. So a stimulus, like touching something sharp, gets picked up by a receptor in your skin. A sensory neuron zips that ouch signal straight to your spinal cord. There, the signal gets immediately rerouted to a motor neuron, which instantly tells the muscle in your arm to contract and pull your hand away. It's a direct loop that protects you before your brain even has time to register what happened. And all of this leaves us with a really fascinating thought to end on. This incredibly complex system is what allows you to have your deepest thoughts and your most creative ideas, and yet it's also running countless life-sustaining actions without any conscious input from you at all. It kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? With so much happening on autopilot, how much of what we call you is really in the driver's seat?